This is VOA News, reporting via remote. I'm Jeff Custer. Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in the Belarus capital Minsk Monday for talks with his Belarusian counterpart, Alexander Lukashenko, who has forged close defense links with Moscow. Lukashenko allowed Russian forces to use Belarusian territory as a launching point for the invasion of Ukraine in February, and there are concerns Putin is looking for more help from the country. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
Analysts say the Kremlin might look again for Belarusian military support for its Ukraine operations, but according to the Washington-based Institute for the Study of War, the winter weather and Russia's depleted resources mean any attack probably won't come soon. The institute assesses the capacity of the Russian military to prepare and conduct effective large-scale mechanized offensive operations in the next few months remains questionable, adding it's unlikely Lukashenko will commit the Belarusian military, which would also have to be re-equipped to the invasion of Ukraine. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Ukraine reported a fresh round of Russian drone attacks Monday, which much of the focus on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, hours after President Vladimir Zelensky renewed his calls for allies to help boost Ukraine's air defenses in its battle against the Russian invasion. Ukraine's military said it shot down 30 of 35 self-exploding drones that Russia launched. Kyiv city administration said on the social media platform Telegram that 23 of those drones targeted the city. Authorities in Kyiv said there was no reported casualties, according to preliminary information, while Ukraine's energy operator, Ukrenagro, said it would be conducting emergency shutdowns in the Kyiv area following the drone attacks. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky Monday addressed a meeting of the Northern European leaders in Latvia, calling for more aid for their military effort. This is VOA News. U.S. President Joe Biden's administration is making a new push to reduce homelessness as a federal survey confirms something that's been obvious to many people who live in U.S. cities. The problem is not going away. AP's Julie Walker reports.
The nationwide point-in-time count found that about 582,000 people were without housing earlier this year. That's an increase of less than 1% from the last nationwide tally conducted in early 2020 before the coronavirus pandemic hit the country hard. The federal initiative seeks to drive the count down by 25% by 2025 through efforts to house people who are homeless and prevent others from losing their homes in the first place. The 2022 All-In strategy aims to influence local action with financial incentives, streamlined processes, and strong policies. I'm Julie Walker.
London's High Court ruled Monday that Britain's plan to send immigrants entering Britain unlawfully to Rwanda is lawful, in a victory for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who had promised to tackle the record number of migrants arriving in small boats into the country. Under Britain's agreement with Rwanda, applicants granted asylum there would be eligible to remain in Rwanda, but not eligible to return to Britain. Britain had to cancel the first flight scheduled to Rwanda in June after the European Court of Human Rights blocked the move, saying the plan carried a real risk of irreversible harm. Human rights groups have said Britain's pact with Rwanda is inhumane, and the African nation does not have the capacity to process the claims and has a questionable human rights record. Head of bargaining at Britain's Public and Commercial Services Union, Paul O'Connor, the union, of course, will carry out the law, said the government's plan is still unlawful in his eyes.
The judges today may well have found that decision to be lawful, but it remains morally reprehensible and utterly inhumane, and we will continue to do all we can to fight this policy.
Representatives of a UN biodiversity conference in Canada agreed Monday to an historic deal to protect and support the planet's species and ecosystems. The agreement includes a pledge to protect 30% of land and water that is important for biodiversity by 2030, up from the current plan, which protects 17% of land and 10% of water areas. The deal also calls for wealthy nations to boost financing to developing countries for conservation efforts to at least $20 billion a year by 2025 and to $30 billion a year by 2030. Some developing nations, led by Brazil, objected to the size of the financing package, arguing it should be much higher. Other criticisms of the agreement include not having stronger steps towards eliminating subsidies that make food and fuel cheap in some parts of the world.
This is VOA News.
Please subscribe, like, or comment. Thank you. Hi, thank you for watching. I hope the videos are useful for you. Please subscribe to my channel using the button below.